Happy Friday, everybody. This is Desiree here, Genius Loves Company, bridging the Music Tech Connect where everybody's genius, but I love musicians. So I have with us today my very special guest, Maurice Garcia. Thank you so much for joining me here today, Maurice. And so it's Corona craziness, right? This quarantine. I'm impressed with the amazing way everybody's come together and adapt so quickly. It's kind of crazy.
So I wanted to just kind of chit chat with you. You had been telling me that you're a music fan, but also that you have failed miserably is what your words were, and playing several instruments. So why don't you open up and tell me a little bit about yourself and how you first became introduced to music, maybe what your influences were, and a little bit about your music life.
Yeah, certainly. So, when I think about the influences of music life, it really started at home. My father played music all the time, and not instruments, but music. He really loved music. Going back to this would be the 70s. He had what we would call a real high tech audio system. He was tuned out and had reel to reels and the cassettes, and he had a large vinyl collection, and he had a very broad taste in music. He liked a lot of country music. He liked some classical music. He liked some popular music. He really was a big fan of some of the things we call elevator music today as well, right? And I'll drop some names like Ray Conniff was a big guy that he liked, and Charlie Rich back in the day, and Johnny Cash and Eddie Arnold. Those were the country stars of that era. And so music was always playing at the house. And I have an older brother who is another music aficionado. He's been a DJ all his life and has an enormous record collection of everything you can think of. So, it was impossible to not live in the house and be a part of that family and not be affected by music because it was always playing, But it never transferred into like being able to actually play music or sing. I mean, we just don't have that skill. We're like, hey, we can appreciate listening to good music, but we can't play it. That's the irony of it all.
I hear you. So you've been working in technology now. I think you mentioned 1986. Is that when the airline was first coming into fruition?
Yeah, well, I had a life before UPS. And, when I was in high school, I think the computer was coming in as I was leaving, and I was actually in the real estate business for a number of years before I got into technology. And one day I was at an office there, and there was one of those dumb green terminals that nobody went, it was just sitting there. And I was really looking for some extra desk space. And I said, hey, can I get rid of, what is this thing? I mean, can what do we do with this? And, I had the modem where you put the phone thing in there and you dialed up. No one used it, right? So I was like, oh, it's a computer. And I started to use that. And then eventually these laptops came out. And I mean, these were bricks. They weighed like 30 pounds, Zenith, and they were blue screen and, LCD and whatever. And we bought those and we said, wow, this is automation. Let's automate all these things that we're doing here with the typewriter and the printer and all that. Maybe we can automate that. And so, that led me into computers. And back then you had to actually write your program, right? It was Basic A and Pascal was there. So we had to write them. And then that started the journey. I kind of got into it. I went to another company and I was in a finance division, and it was sort of like a replay, but a little bit more advanced. There were dumb terminals hooked up to the general ledger system. And the manager there one day said, well, you know something about, what do they call them? PCs, right? We got 4 of them over there in the stock room. Can you see if we can do those things or send them back? And then I started working on some things for them using Lotus 123 and DBase back in the day. And it was like, oh, hey, this is really cool, and there was a lot of things happening there. And then when I got to UPS, of course, from that area, I did some networking assignments with that company. And then later when I got to UPS, it was like, this is Disney. I mean, UPS had everything. The data center was here, and the mainframes and the AS400s. At that point, I was doing some AS400 work. And it was like, oh my God, look at all the things they have here. It really was the Disneyland of computers. And then it evolved, right? I took some assignments there with PCs and some of our initial shipping systems, MaxiShip and MaxiTrack. And then when the .com era came in, I was in the front line for that, and it was just explosive, and always a thrill, always a challenge. It really is always about, the computer's trying to fake you out, and you're trying to say it's not going to go that way today, right? We're gonna get this system back up. We're gonna get to our end game using the technology and trying to continue to just increase our capability and just breaking down the barrier, right? That we see with technology, and then of course security. That was the other next thing that came out, and what a thrill that's been as well, right? It's just a nonstop. No days ever the same as the day before. Just never.
That's what keeps it interesting. Absolutely.
Great feel for everybody. And you get two IT guys or two security guys or two people there, and you could just you could talk forever about all the things that have evolved in that industry and the things that we're all dealing with. So certainly just interest all the time.
Right. So I know that I've talked to you a little bit previously about the MusicTechConnect. I discovered a long time ago after interviewing hundreds and thousands of IT people that a very large majority of them were musicians. What does MusicTechConnect mean to you?
I wish I could say that I've connected more with the actual musicians that play, but I think it's because I don't necessarily play. Maybe I don't somehow get involved in that. But there are some folks at UPS that do play, and I remember years ago we used to have like this UPS variety show for United Way and for fundraising, and it was all UPS people. And I will tell you, I've seen some people in UPS who not only sing, right, as yours truly, right, or as you, and they play the drums, they play the guitar. I mean, it was interesting to see like ensembles of bands, all kinds of instruments, and they were all playing. And even in InfoSec, I remember, a guy that worked with us before, Wayne Plumer, was a musician in one of the public symphonies in a French horn. I'm like, I would have never known that, right?
I didn't know that about Wayne. Wow.
Yeah, Wayne Plumer, he played, and so did his wife. And so like, when you say like, what are you doing on the weekend? These people are playing in orchestras, right? And we've had so many people that have played professionally or semi-professionally or are members of bands. And so I just think it's definitely there in the culture of UPS. Brown to the Bone certainly is a testimony to that. And that wasn't, I don't know the size of the festival, but just listening to the track, it
Right.
sounded like there was a lot of people there. And as you know, music brings people together in just a way that nothing else does, right?
It absolutely does.
And it's a healing thing even now. I have music playing on all day. My daughter, who's kind of quarantined here with me, is sometimes fighting for like, hey, can I play something now? And I'm like, well, okay.
So what's on your playlist during this Corona quarantine?
God. Geez, well, what's not, or what haven't I done? So I start the music. I start the morning off with some classical music.
Okay.
And just I think Wagner was just playing in the background. The Ride of the Valkyries, and I go through a Mozart piano, playlist, and I'll do some Beethoven. The other day I was in Mahler. Brahms. So I'll start. I kind of get up in the morning. It's a little bit of classical. What was playing just a moment ago was Miles Davis. So now I'm getting into the jazz, and then as we get into the afternoon, things will start to kind of ramp up a little bit. We'll have some Aerosmith playing, and we'll get into some Leonard Skinner was playing the other day, and some Kid Rock. I think like around 6:30, I'm starting to get the lead out a little bit more, and I mean it'll depend. We had some dance music on yesterday afternoon, and we're trying to take some stretch breaks here. So I'll stop, I'll get my daughter, and we'll just play something and just walk. We'll go to the front of the house, we'll go to the back of the house, and get it flowing. But my musical taste really goes, I listen to classical music a lot. I listen to old jazz, Coltrane, Chet Baker, Miles Davis, I'll listen to, some pop rocks. I mean, I'm getting into now, my daughter started getting me into like the Goo Goo Dolls and Train.
Mm-hmm.
We had tickets to go see Third Eye Blind at Radio City a couple of days ago that got canceled. But Southern rock, classic rock. I listen to a lot of classic rock. Led Zeppelin's up there with one of my all-time favorite bands. Aerosmith. Uh, the Police, the Cars. I mean, and we'll even 50 Cent was on the other day, right? We're like some of these tracks, like my daughter will say, like, what do you have in there? Because I'll be going somewhere, I'm listening to something from Santana, and then all of a sudden you hear the Fitty come out and he starts rapping, and it's followed by somebody else, and I'm like, well, yeah, it's a little
Very
bit of everything.
eclectic.
Yeah, it moves. It really moves, and a lot of it is depending on my mood.
Right. Well, so I wanted to share with you a little bit what I've been working on. So we are going to do a MusicTechConnect career fair this fall it's in the Louisville Cities region. But my plan is, if this idea goes well, is to take this to Mawa as well. And if we do that, we're going to put together another UPS musician event, so we can all get together and play. Because I think Richard Thalley, information security manager, he's a drummer.
Yeah, see, I didn't know that, but yeah.
Yep. Sean Ayers, of course, our bass player. So we've got a lot of musicians. In fact, Mike DeTomo, the guy that we were trying to hire, he's a musician, a fantastic musician. So we're going to get together a lot of these people. But basically what I'm doing is taking all of these IT folks that are musicians. They'll have their instrument, but then when the kids come and talk to them, they'll talk about their IT career and the types of possibilities that you can do with IT. So I'm pretty excited.
Yeah, I think that's great, and I did forward that on to Al, as we had talked about, and he used to play the keyboard. I lost track of whether he does or not, and we made some hotel lobbies pretty angry at us a couple of times in years past traveling when we would sit at the piano and they would say, please don't play the piano anymore, you're horrible. But one of those, and that was me, by the way, that was doing that, right? And then one time he actually sat there and he played something like, geez, you really know how to play this thing. So I do know he used to play. I'm going to follow up with him, and there are people in IT that certainly jam.
Yeah, and so Accenture has told me, now that I have this relationship with Mawa and Louisville, they're like, we need to bring you to Mawa. So they're actually going to put the bill, I think. So when we do this, we're going to make sure that I get your input so we can put together a little gathering of fun music and food and drinks.
Yeah, absolutely. It really does break it down, and we all need some release.
Absolutely. So are you doing okay during all of this? What is your opinion?
What we see here is how active we all are and how connected we all are, and how much, even though we don't realize it, we do spend a lot of time with other people and in close proximity, right? And now you get to sort of appreciate what you take for granted, and I think it's going to make us stronger and more aware that these things really do matter, and we do need to prepare for days like today, even if they don't happen all the time, right? So you see how connected we really are to one another as a global community, right? It's amazing to look at it in that way, and like we think, oh, China all the way over there. Well, nah. I mean, China's in your backyard.
Right.
It's your neighbor, right? It's your neighbor. I'm one of those hopeful, optimistic people that are grounded in reality. And I don't like to just believe, well, it's all going to be okay without there being some substance to it's going to be okay. I do see activity now that is going down that path where you can start to say, if we stay on this course and we improve upon this course and continue to do the right things, we will be okay. But we really have to sacrifice and do the right thing now, or instead of it being a 2020 thing, it could be 2021. We could be in this for a while, right? Look at Hong Kong, it's going up and down. Yeah. So we have to be able to learn from those that have been ahead, like Hong Kong. I'm not so sure about China, but and then the other states in the United States have to look at these states, New York, New Jersey, and say, whoa, yeah, it's coming, and we'll get through it.
It's been interesting to see all the effects it's had. I have a friend that works in the customs, said 50% of everything that's coming in from China is going return to sender. And so it's clogging the system because it's not meant to go backwards.
Yeah.
Just all these
Well, that's it. You know,
unexpected, bizarre things happening.
that is an interesting point. I had not thought about
I have
that.
a lot of hope to see the way humanity has responded to this. You know, people have been much more kind and considerate, and it's really interesting to see people really locking down and trying to prevent this thing from getting any bigger.
Yeah,
It's been cool.
absolutely. We all got to do our part.
Yeah, Maurice, you've been wonderful. Thank you so much for spending some time with
Anytime.
me. I really do appreciate it. Have a happy
Anytime. Well, thank
Friday.
you. Yep, you
All
too.
right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.